Intimacy is a big part of being human. After all, it's how we make more humans. But sex for pleasure has been viewed differently throughout the ages. Way back when, the ancient Greeks had some surprising views on the subject of intimacy, and some attitudes and practices best left in the past. So, today we're pulling the robes off of what sex was like in ancient Greece. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other historical bedroom practices you would like to hear about. Okay, time to get it on. Get the video on. The ancient Greeks played an integral role in forming modern society. We have a lot to thank the Greeks for, from systems of governments to aspects of the justice system and even plumbing. So you know who to blame the next time your toilet backs up into the kitchen. Not all practices stood the test of time, though, as dating in ancient Greece was a far cry from modern romance. Ancient Greece's views on intimacy were far less conservative than contemporary societies. Doing the dirty with both men and women was the norm in Athens, and men often took on protégés who doubled as passive physical partners. Bumping uglies actually played an important role in culture and societal hierarchy in ancient times. Relations between men were not only accepted but encouraged. There was no word for homosexuality either. The practice was part of the broader concept of aphrodisia, uninfluenced by gender. However, this doesn't mean it was a golden age for same-sex relationships. Historians believe ancient Athenian men regarded dominance in intimate relationships as a status symbol. If a man acted as the passive partner, pathikos, he often endured ridicule. The ancient Athenians had a derogatory name for these men, kineti. Man, that word even sounds unfriendly. Conversely, ancient Greece's relaxed view of sex included some practices that are considered reprehensible in modern society. Pederasty, or when a man took on a boy student, usually a teen, as a protégé and physical partner, is arguably the most notorious. The act reflected attitudes about domination and submission in Greek culture, as intimate relations were more about satisfying the dominant partner than the submissive one. Plato's Symposium suggests this relationship between two men, specifically between a man and a youth, is the purest form of his definition of love, as it has roots in the desire to share knowledge and worldviews. Physical intimacy was merely a bonus, sort of like the ancient world's version of friends with benefits. Greece did not always welcome these attitudes. By around 450 BCE, there were laws against sexual profligacy. Though the laws mostly applied to men, they affected a person's ability to run for office, which was not possible for women. Still, it is believed that there was a large discrepancy between official laws and actual custom, sort of like how some people treat stop signs more like a suggestion than a rule. Some religions paint sex as a sinful act unless performed by a husband and wife, but the ancient Greeks attached little to no religious significance to sex whatsoever, leading to their accepting attitudes of different interests. Nudity wasn't shameful, hence all the naked people in ancient Greek art. Public plays and artwork could also depict eyebrow-raising acts worthy of a giant adults-only sign. For the ancient Greeks, sex was also pivotal in their humor. Aristophanes, one of Greece's great comic writers, wrote particularly raunchy plays. The Athenian women in Lysistrati, for instance, embarked on a sex strike in an attempt to end the Peloponnesian War. The play brims with jokes about promiscuity, double entendres, and bawdy humor. Allegedly, Aristophanes had 106 ways to describe the phallus and some 91 words for female genitalia. There was also raunchy graffiti scrawled throughout Greece, which was more or less exactly like the kind you see in bathroom stalls. No, seriously, it's so obscene we can't mention it here, so go look it up. To the ancient Greeks, depicting male genitalia in art was not an indecent act. The Herm, a statue of the god Hermes, aka the messenger god and guardian of fertility, was one such portrayal. The god's bust sits atop an unadorned pillar, save for a realistically rendered phallus at the appropriate level. Herms sat outside people's houses, near temples, at crossroads. People even used them as signposts. In 415 BCE, during the Peloponnesian War, a Vandal chopped off the genitals of the Hermes of Athens. Some accused an Athenian statesman, Alcibiades, of the vandalism. He denied the charges, and his enemies sentenced him to execution in absentia. They took their statues very seriously. In ancient Greece, with sex being so matter-of-fact, It's reasonable to assume sexual self-gratification, too, would appear less taboo. Though it wasn't considered as uncouth a conversational topic as it is in modern times, self-gratification was usually an object of humor, as in Aristophanes' play where the public deemed it an inferior, silly act. Forms of self-gratification took prominence in art, but they often depicted lesser non-citizens, such as women partaking in the act. These illustrations often showed self-pleasure during or after a physically charged event, such as a symposium. Frequently, it was the female workers pleasuring themselves, not the men. Self-pleasure was also associated with slaves as a symbol of their lowly status. Coitus had widespread acceptance in Greek society, but to pleasure oneself without another person involved was embarrassing by Greek standards. Despite their comparatively liberal views on sex, romantic kissing was considered taboo. Kissing was more the domain of greetings. Later, the Romans, who adapted much from Greek cultures, greeted one another with a kiss on the lips. In ancient Greece, kisses between families and pacts between men were more socially acceptable than kisses between men and women in public. Regardless of their relationship, the public viewed women who passionately kissed others disreputable and domineering, an undesirable trait, as women were expected to play a passive role. If a man did opt to kiss his wife, it was likely to check if she was drinking when he was away. The patriarchal norms of ancient Greece, combined with mythology filled with gods snatching up human women, implied that assault was not a heinous offense. The Greek gods, particularly Zeus, were notorious for tricking women into having sex with them. Turns out Mount Olympus was full of close-up magicians. Though the gods weren't like the aspirational, flawless figures of other religions, it's clear the attitudes toward assault were more relaxed back then. In fact, seducing a married woman was allegedly a worse crime, as it required one man to treat another man's property as his own, making it a kind of theft. Herodotus's writings, which were reportedly echoed by the Greeks, said that while forcing oneself on someone was unjust, it did not need avenging. The Greeks valued sex as part of their culture, which meant not having it was a problem, so they devised all kinds of cures for impotence. Treatments involving snakes were popular because they believed snakes could self-heal, which, no, they can't. You're thinking of geckos, ancient Greeks. Likewise, since lizards had associations with prowess in the bedroom, consuming a lizard allegedly improved the libido. Another cure entailed rubbing male genitalia with a mixture of pepper and honey. Some ancient Greeks hypothesized that simply feeling anxiety about sex could cause impotence. However, these remedies were all male-focused. As with many things in ancient Greece, little was written about women's intimate problems or medicinal solutions. Sex work was a legal occupation for both men and women in ancient Greece. Athenian women were largely homemakers, and they required an escort to venture out into the city. Some women, like ladies of the night, concubines, and courtesans, had a little more freedom due to their status in Greek society. There were also state-run bordellos in ancient Greece. These parlors typically offered enslaved people, but some women became porne, or streetwalkers. Concubines were a somewhat higher class, as they usually had a contract with one man rather than to a bordello. Courtesans were the highest class. They had an education and could entertain men with both their wit and body. Think Inara in Firefly. However, there was still a stigma. Male sex workers couldn't work in public service later in life. The common belief was that people who sold their bodies could easily succumb to political bribes. In English, love means everything from what we feel for our families, to romantic love, or to our enjoyment of the latest Transformers movie. In ancient Greece, this wasn't the case. There were different types of love, and each had distinct words and gods associated with it. Aphrodite, one of the most famous deities of love, reigns over intimate love. Today, the word aphrodisiac was derived from her name, in case you were wondering. Similarly, the god Eros ruled over intimate passion, and the word erotic stems from his name. If there weren't a specific god to rule over a particular type of love, the ancient Greeks had unique words for them. Ludus is a playful, fun love, the kind often found between children or honeymoon stage lovers, while agape is a form of altruistic universal love. Prama refers to long-lasting love cultivated over time. Hangry describes one's love for Snickers, etc. These aren't all of the love types defined in Greek society, but by having a variety, they could separate desire, romance, relations, and play to emphasize their beliefs about each concept. Meanwhile, we just have the one word, but it is surprisingly versatile and is likewise used to describe many different types of affection. Maybe those Greeks were onto something. So what do you think? Which fact about knocking ancient Greek boots surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.